Boundary Waters Canoe Area Controversy, Sound Politics, and the Wilderness Act of 1964. This act was to establish a wilderness preservation system for the permanent good of the whole people and for other purposes. In 1964, Congress passed the Wilderness Act, and the Boundary Waters Canoe Area became part of the National Wilderness Preservation System. 6 organizations joined together as the Conservation Affiliates. They wanted to pass a revolutionary law that designated the BWCA as a place where vehicles were not allowed, where no permanent camps or structures could be built, and where wildlife would be kept in the most original setting as possible.
With a clause that allowed some logging and use of motors to be continued in the Boundary Waters in northern Minnesota, the reaction to the Boundary Waters Canoe Area was mixed. The resort owners, business people, loggers, locals, and the people who came for peaceful canoeing all had different views on the Wilderness Act. In the end, the act was passed and reformed the Boundary Waters into the place it is today.
The Boundary Waters Canoe Area in northern Minnesota is 1 million acres of wilderness, with over 1,000 pristine lakes and streams and over 1,500 miles of canoe routes. It is considered by some the most beautiful wilderness they've ever seen. The BWCA hasn't always been like that. During the late 1880s, it started being used for mining, logging, and motorized recreation, including attempts to make the area open to lodges, cabins, and extensive motorized travel.
People have been enjoying the BWCA for a long time. The earliest recorded white settlers explored the area about 1660. These people came to the BWCA to explore the land, and the Great Fur Trade began. Soon after that came the voyageurs, French and other northern Europeans. Exploring and exploiting the resources of the area, they were trapping and trading beaver pelts and other animals. The native people trapped and traded furs with the voyageurs. The Indians were eventually pushed out by the white people. Once the BWCA became more populated, people were realizing the abundance of resources. They started to realize how money could be made from the land.
In the beginning of the 20th century, people really started to industrialize northern Minnesota. In the 1920s, Edward Buckus, a local industrialist, proposed building several dams in the region, which was successfully opposed by Ernest Oberholzer. People did not want dams in the Boundary Waters because it would damage the nature. It would raise lake levels, flooding the thousands of miles of shoreline. Many of the waterfalls would have been wiped out if the dams weren't opposed.
In 1923, developers wanted a road to every lake in the wilderness, a plan routed by the Zeke Welton League and emerging conservationists Sigurd Olson and Aldo Leopold. It was the first idea in what would become a half-century of incursions and retreats, an ebb and flow of noise and silence. Hydraulic dams were proposed and defeated. Logging and mining, 2 basics of the local economy, were restricted.
By 1926, the Superior Wilderness Area had been designated by the U.S. Forest Service, offering some protection for mining, logging, and hydraulic projects. It was little protection, but it wasn't enough to preserve the BWCA to its most original setting.
In the late 40s, says Bill Romm, even wilderness tourism was threatening the wilderness. A profusion of flying resorts had made Ely the busiest inland floatplane base in the world. When environmentalists fought for a ban on flights into the Boundary Waters, many locals were fed up with wilderness advocates like Sig Olson and Romm himself.
In 1949, some people living around the Boundary Waters area were starting to get ideas to preserve the Boundary Waters even better. Others didn't agree. Some went as far as making a homemade bomb and throwing it into one of the main supporters' yards.
Large amounts of logging within the Boundary Waters canoe area became the subject of intense debate. For example, conservationists wanted to protect the land and make sure that it is a place with no motorized vehicles and no permanent structures. But the businessmen and other people wanted to use this land so they could make money off of it. Also, people who work for those companies might lose their jobs if they couldn't log or do other jobs there.
For conservationists like the Zeke Welton League, the Wilderness Society, the Minnesota Wildlife Federation, and 6 other organizations joined together as the Conservation Affiliates. They wanted to demand the BWCA's full preservation under the Wilderness Bill that was nearing passage in Congress.
Howard Zancer, executive director of the Wilderness Society, drafted a bill to protect some of the nation's remaining wilderness areas. This was the first draft of the Wilderness Act, wrote in 1956. The Wilderness Act took 9 years, 65 rewrites, and 18 public hearings to be completed.
The Wilderness Act took a long time to be completed because many people opposed the idea. Representative Wayne Aspinall called it a crazy idea, and even the National Park Service originally opposed the act. In August of 1964, after the Senate had passed it for the second time, the House of Representatives overwhelmingly passed the Act of 1964 with only 1 vote against the act.
President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Wilderness Act into law on September 3rd of that year. After signing the act, President Johnson reflected on its significance. If future generations are to remember us with gratitude rather than contempt, we must leave them something more than the miracle of technology. We must leave them a glimpse of the world as it was in the beginning.
The Wilderness Act directed the Secretary of the Interior within 10 years to review every roadless area of 5,000 acres and every roadless island, regardless of size, within the National Wildlife Refuge and National Park systems, and to recommend to the President the suitability of each area or island for inclusion in the National Wilderness Preservation System, with final decisions made by Congress.
The Secretary of Agriculture was directed to study and recommend suitable areas in the National Forest System. The Wilderness Act of 1964 stated the idea, describing a wilderness as an area where the earth and its community of life are untrampled by man, where man himself is a visitor who does not remain.
By definition, then, it is a place where vehicles would not be allowed, where no permanent camps or structures could be made, and where wildlife and its habitat would be kept in the most primitive condition as possible. The act brought protests from local residents who saw their livelihoods threatened. Many in Ely still feel the law was shoved down their throats by a hot-headed environmental movement.
The act did a variety of things, including it established a national policy to preserve wilderness, it established a definition of wilderness, also established a national wilderness preservation system. The act designated the first 9.1 million acres of legally protected wilderness, then established a single constant wilderness management direction, mandated a wilderness review process, and asserted the exclusive power of the Congress to designate wilderness areas.
Also, the Wilderness Act of 1964 was one of the first wilderness acts. It inspired others, and it helped start the environmental movement in the 70s.
The 64 Wilderness Act did not change things too much for the Boundary Waters. It sort of locked in what was then occurring. The challenge or the difficulty was that amendment by Senator Humphrey put into federal statute kind of this conundrum. Is it a wilderness or not? It was a wilderness certainly in name, but not really in management.
The Wilderness Act of 1964 did some, but there were still a few more things the conservationists wanted to do because
logging was still permitted, and motorboat use and then snowmobile use were allowed in the area, and that was not allowed in any other wilderness area in the country.
Then in 1978, Congress passed another BWCA Wilderness Act, eliminating logging and snowmobiling, restricting mining, and allowing motorboats only on the fourth of the water.
The Wilderness Act states that the wilderness areas are established to ensure that increasing population, accompanied by an expanding settlement and growing mechanization, does not occupy and modify all areas within the United States and its possessions, leaving no lands designated for preservation and protection in their natural condition.
Today, wilderness is designated for a variety of benefits, including clean water and air, habitat for rare plants and animals, as well as primitive recreation. A canoeist gliding through the BWCA might see moose, loons, bears, and beavers. What he won't see is clear-cuts, mining trucks, roads, or resorts. All were here, all are gone. Tourists don't see the 60 years of environmental projects, that sometimes sneaky politics, or the painful cost of preservation.
Under the command of this Wilderness Act, over 25 million acres of land and water in the National Wildlife Refuge System were reviewed. Some 7 million acres and 92 units were found suitable for designation. From these recommendations, as of December 1998, over 6,832,800 acres and 65 units have been established as part of the National Wildlife Preservation System by special acts of Congress.
The Boundary Waters was part of the National Wilderness System, and was one of the original units in the national system, but it was being managed in a way that no other wilderness in the country was being managed.
The Wilderness Act of 1964 may not have done everything the conservationists wanted, but was a good start to preserving the Boundary Waters canoe area.